Hi there, welcome to Mental Health Mondays. I'm Jim Brayshaw.
And I'm Angela, and today we're going to talk about mindfulness.
Mindfulness, are we going to be a witness to our thoughts and feelings? And it's not possible in 10 minutes, Ange, to become a Mindfulness Pro. So we suggest folks take a look at this again after it's gone into the cloud so you can review it at your own leisure. But what we do know about mindfulness is pretty clear. The human mind focuses on the present only 53% of the time, which is really almost half of our mental health life.
Yeah, and it's usually preoccupied by abstract thoughts of analyzing what has already happened or anticipating what's going to happen in the future or near future in some or either of that realm.
Yeah, and to know that mindfulness is a state of active, open attention to the present. This state is described as observing one's thoughts and feelings without judging them as good or bad.
And I mean, we're going to go with the common understanding. So the meat of mindfulness is noticing what is in my head now. Meditation, which it gets confused with, is clearing my head of what it's in, all the lists and everything that's in there now.
So trying to empty my head is more meditative, trying to think about the thoughts is more mindful.
Yeah, it's a little bit more active. While we're doing the action, we're thinking of it.
Yeah, and another way it's said is mindfulness is the awareness of something, where meditation is trying to be the awareness of no thing.
Yeah, unless we get into specific kinds of meditation, but this is generally speaking.
Speaking of specific kinds, mindfulness has three aspects: intention, attention, and attitude. So a brief look at what each of those are. Those three aspects start with intention.
Yeah, so our intention is what we hope to get from practicing mindfulness.
Yeah, and the next one is attention, where mindfulness is about noticing your inner or outer experience. Does it mean, Ange, we have to really do something with it, or is noticing it enough?
Well, the thing is, we do something with it. As human beings, we instantly make a judgment about it, usually, which is why people don't tend to gravitate to something that makes them feel bad, because we judge ourselves a lot. So trying to get into that clinical aspect and just notice, this is what my body does when I think about that. This is what my heart does when I think about that. This is what, and these are just thoughts, this is what certain areas of my body does when I think about or have my actions towards something that I have a cognitive dissonance about.
And is it come natural for anyone?
No.
No.
It's a practice.
It is a practice, absolutely. The third one in these three aspects is the attitude. Mindfulness involves noticing certain attitudes such as curiosity, acceptance, kindness. Now, those are the good attitudes to notice, but what are we thinking about the ones I would like to judge?
Well, those are the ones where usually a meditation coach or a mindfulness coach will say, put them to the side or put them in a place that maybe you don't need right now. So what's necessary in mindfulness is not judging ourselves and not being too clinical, but at the same time noticing certain things, certain actions, certain thoughts create emotions that then release what in my brain?
That release chemicals that will help me process the emotions and then build the ability to have focus and choice making in the future. And what you just described is being that witness, right, to our thoughts and feelings. It's something that we do need to learn to do because we used to do it easily. Our prefrontal cortex was part of our brain that would give the opportunity to think about the things we're doing and thinking or feeling. But as we go through life, what we do is we develop the ability to do things automatically on an autopilot mode, and that's where the striatum takes over. It captures all these good things we've done and it turns on the autopilot mode, so our prefrontal cortex is no longer at work. And then at the beginning of learning a new behavior, we use what?
Well, we use this episodic memory, and then when the executive function in our brain is in control to make sure we stay focused at the task on hand. So after a while, the task gets embedded into that striatum and we go on to autopilot. Now, I'm going to speak to those of you who have lived with perhaps a physical disability or have some sort of mental health disability. You've been doing this a long time. You just haven't placed a word on it perhaps, but it's something I, as a person with 2 autoimmune conditions, has practiced over time. And anyone who's had to do that knows what kind of work it takes actually to do a certain practice to the point where you're like, it's just automatic that I wash my hands every time I come in from the house, from anywhere, right?
Yeah, and one of the topics I think we talked about was bicycle riding, how that becomes automatic eventually, but initially it's not in the striatum, it's episodic. We have to learn all the little nuances and skills and the balance features, and then eventually it becomes procedural memory and no longer needs executive function to function. But that means we're not being mindful about it, which is okay in some things.
Yeah, in some things, and the prefrontal cortex is then bypassed and mindfulness is avoided. So in certain things, it's good to become mindless, if I can use that word about it, because I've seen myself do that, and people go, like, you just came in and then you wash your hands, but this was like 10 years ago. So I had built that practice with myself.
Well, and you talk about it as a practice, and when you build it, the practice of mindfulness dampens activity in our amygdala. It increases connections between the amygdala and that prefrontal cortex, so it communicates without going on autopilot as often.
Yeah.
And what does it does to reactivity to stressors?
Well, it reduces reactivity to stressors and enhances our recovery from stress when we do experience it. And let's face it, there's some stressful days, moments, hours, weeks, and months, perhaps.
Yeah, and some people have had years of stressful moments.
Yeah.
And some of us will think, mindfulness sounds cool, maybe kitschy, but isn't it becoming thoughtful just a ton of work, and focusing is hard work? And it might be for some people because we're so autopilot.
Well, and we have a lot more on our minds these days too.
Yeah.
So to give yourself a little bit of leeway and just to give yourself a little bit of self-respect about it, just noticing there's a lot on my mind. Is there racing thoughts, repetitive loops, non-productive thoughts? For sure.
Yeah.
Thoughts that lead to stress, distractions, or thoughts that lead to self-regulation.
Or lack of quality self-regulation, which is about knowing which emotions we have available to choose from in many situations. But mindfulness will help with all of those, and we become that witness to our thoughts, but we still think sometimes there's so many stressors, it's hard to live, to go through this. But why should I try mindfulness? What is the biology of it? What happens when we're doing it? Is anxiety, what happens? Goes down.
It reduces it because we have done something about our thoughts that we have really no control over sometimes. And it reduces depression if I think about my thoughts. And it teaches us how to respond to stress and awareness. Now, maybe just simply, I have no more fights left to give. Therefore,
or fights left to give.
I'm going to reserve my energy and be more mindful about reducing my stress than getting involved in a right fight. That's just an example, though. Right?
Well, and I like that one because you're saying, I want more peace, fulfillment, focus, and calmness. And who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
So then can we avoid acting instinctively when that stressor happens? Can we attend to that moment and be aware of our emotions and motives? Because mindfulness is about what? It's
choice management. And at the end of the day, it's really having to tell ourselves over and over again, this is good for my brain. This is good for my brain. That's kind of the mantra I have, just to do it because I'm human like everyone else. And so are our clients.
True.
So having to give that kind of permission to ourselves to say, we're human, but now we want to build this capacity to make choices in the here and now and enhance our ability for self-regulation.
Can we take our emotions, deal with them effectively every time we have one, when we're being mindful of them and not being on striatum mode, or known as autopilot mode?
And it's just easier to do when you have somebody to do it with, or somebody that isn't going to judge you every moment as well. So what can I do? Stop what I'm doing and take a breath. It's hard to do sometimes. Look at something and say what I'm thankful for about. Now, even on the worst days, I would say I'm thankful I have heat, because I don't take that for granted anymore after hearing what people had to go through during the holidays.
Yeah, and pick the simple things like I'm thankful for a cup with water in it.
With water, clean water.
Yeah, clean water.
That's something to be thankful about. So we do that.
That's mindfulness.
Doing one thing at a time for just a minute. Now, a minute's a long time if we have to concentrate on it, but finding a mindful moment, and actually in a mundane task. I'm taking this cup and I'm going to put it towards my face, and then I'm going to drink water. Sounds ridiculous?
but it prepares your brain to make choices and have self-regulation, and it becomes easier to be mindful of the things we do and noticing the moves you make. I'm taking my hand to my mouth, and noticing puts your body in connection with your brain again, and we become better humans for it. Because when we take a pause from the past and the future to enjoy the present, just one moment at a time, we become those humans who can come out of autopilot and have better regulation and better choice, as we talked about.
And better choice management. At the end of the day, that's the gift that mindfulness gives.
Thank you for being with us on Mental Health Mondays. We'll look forward to chatting again soon.
Thank you. Have a great day.